Hey, thanks for joining me. Hope you're doing well. The Holy Grail is an allegorical object whose true meaning is that of the center of our plane, the exit out of this matrix. The Holy Grail is an object that comes from medieval literature, oftentimes associated with King Arthur. It's a vessel or dish with miraculous powers, providing eternal happiness and youth in infinite abundance. The word Grail is derived from the word gradalis, which is cratalis in an earlier form. In Latin, cratalis means crater. Keep this in mind. Robert de Boron was the first one to describe the true Holy Grail. The Grail was said to be Jesus' drinking vessel from the Last Supper, and which Joseph of Arimathea used to catch Jesus' blood during the crucifixion. As we know, the story of Jesus is an astrological allegory for the sun passing through the zodiac each year. On December 21st, the sun appears to stop moving southward. It pauses and then starts moving northward again. This pause is called the winter solstice. During the 3-day pause, the sun resides in the cross of Crux. On December 25th, the sun finally begins moving northward again. The sun dies on the cross of Crux and is therefore crucified. The Last Supper was given by Jesus, knowing his time has come to be crucified. The 12 disciples stand for the 12 zodiac signs who remain stationary in the sky. There's a hole or a crater at the center of our flat plane where all compasses point to. Upon entering this opening, we're able to achieve everlasting life. We are stripped of these body prisons and go into the land of perpetual twilight. We leave this part of the plane drenched in deception and do an interdimensional flip-flop. So this Holy Grail is really an allegory for the movement of Jesus the Son into the hole at the center of our plane. It moves into the hole briefly, bringing in the seasons, and this is why the sun appears to be stationary during the solstices. The blood of Jesus is caught by the Grail during the winter solstice, meaning Jesus the Son is momentarily moving into this crater. In medieval art, the Holy Grail is typically placed in the center of a flat, round table. This is telling us what I'm saying. The prize is at the center of our plane. This account from Robert de Boron, however, had developed from centuries of stories. One of the first written of the Grail comes from the 10th century Celtic story Perceval, written by Chrétien de Troyes. The prologue opens up with a description of paradise on earth. To the Celtic mind, this paradise and the other world were twin universes running parallel to one another. In the story, the evil king Amagons steals a maiden's sacred bowl. Because of this, contact with the other world is lost. So the Grail hero has to now discover the meeting place between the worlds, where he can re-establish communion between the divine female, queen of the inner land, and the king of the outer realm. This divine female is our Earth, who is feminine. After this world was taken over by parasitic forces, represented by the king, we lost our connection with the center of our earth, the meeting place between the two worlds that lay on top of one another. In the Welsh Mabinogion, Bran the Blessed is given a cauldron where dead men can be revived. This magic cauldron became a part of the development of the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail is said to be a magic cauldron that can restore life to any dead body placed in it. Though we're obviously alive, these aren't our original bodies, so one might argue we're dead and must exit the matrix to come back into full awareness and life. They've tried to tell us this is a physical object, a cauldron, a grail, but once we see it for what it is, we realize this is not an object at all, but a map in the form of a story. In the German poem Die Krone, a man who's been searching for the Holy Grail comes to a land so beautiful, 'twas full of all delights that heart of man might desire. The entrance to this wonderland is guarded by a flaming sword, just like in the story of the Garden of Eden. The Spoils of Anwin is a Welsh cryptic poem recounting an expedition of King Arthur to the Celtic underworld. In Welsh mythology, Anwin is the other world. It is a world of delights and eternal youth. In some translations, Anwin means very deep, and in others, underworld. This poem's themes were eventually transferred into the story of the Holy Grail. I am honored in praise. Song was heard in the four-peaked fortress for its revolutions. This four-peaked fortress is talking about the 4 mountains that enclose the main magnetic mountain known as Mount Meru at the center of our plane. Mount Meru is often depicted with 4 mountains or guardians around it. The flashing sword of Lewich has been lifted to it, and before the door of hell lamps burned. The flashing sword is the equivalent of the flaming sword mentioned in the book of Genesis. Hell is simply another name for the underworld, so don't let it confuse you. We've deliberately been told that beneath our feet is a place that no man would willingly travel to, when in reality, the underworld is heaven, it's paradise. I am honored in praise, song is heard, in the fortress of 4 peaks, isle of the strong door. So this story occurs on an island. Mount Meru is at the center of an island, as shown by a map made by Gerardus Mercator in 1595. This isle is located somewhere in the Arctic. Mercator actually mentioned in a letter around the same time. Right under the pole, there lies a bare rock in the midst of the sea, and it is all of magnetic stone. In my opinion, it's strange that a story about a magic opening near a mountain would over time become the Holy Grail. But this is intentional. We've been given a paper trail, so once we start decoding, we can't mess this up. The Phantom Chariot of Cuchulainn, an ancient Welsh text, contains a poem called Dun Scaith, meaning Fortress of Shadow, which tells a similar story. It involves a subterranean paradise world through an island with a mountain. As I've talked about in previous videos, the 8-rayed symbol is usually synonymous with a gateway. The cross of the Elu represents the gate of God. The Sumerian 8-rayed symbol of the Nibiru represents a gate. The Dharma wheel, symbolizing the walk towards enlightenment, is a gateway to nirvana. And there's many more. These are all converging towards the center. All compasses have 8 points, and this is no accident. Our compasses point towards this magnetic mountain where we must go to achieve everlasting life. This is why there's always an arrow or red mark indicating where to come pass. On this ancient Chinese compass, we see an 8-rayed symbol, and at the center, there is a spoon, telling us we must drink from the waters through the opening at the center, just like when we drink from the Holy Grail. These waters will help us achieve everlasting life, and probably have extensive spiritual properties that we can't even imagine. This is an ancient Viking compass. Again, 8 lines, and the center is marked with a jewel. Our compass is our guide. As long as we follow it, we'll eventually arrive at Mount Meru, towards our divine destination. And we will be closer and closer to the green astral light pouring out from the center. Ever wondered why green is go on a traffic light? Because we must go within, where the green astral light, what some call the aurora borealis, is coming from. If you take the letter G and flip it upside down and put the O underneath, we see an arc shape, similar to the candy cane. Candy canes are symbolic of Jesus the Sun, moving in and out of the center hole during the solstices. The arc shape is what this represents. So the word is pointing to where we must go. There is no mistake. Green is go. In the new movie The Big Friendly Giant, a giant and a young girl jump into a sparkling neon lake at night and come up in a misty world with the aurora borealis. A sparkling stream flows uphill, and the giant says, "This is the land of dreams." This misty world is not a fiction. It's the land of perpetual twilight, powered by the black sun. The black sun, which is at the opposing end of our white sun, emits this green energy, vril, prana, whatever you want to call it. Both suns are actually one in the same, because one side of a light hole is a black hole. The Mystery of the Green Children of Woolpit is an English folk story about the land of perpetual twilight, or St. Martin's Land. 2 children appeared in the village of Woolpit. The boy and girl spoke in unknown languages, and their skin was green. It was said they emerged from an opening in a cavern, which connected our world and theirs. A farmer discovered the pair and took them into town. In time, they lost their green color. Whether or not this is a folk story or a true story, it reveals to us many things. Their said green color was due to the astral light which comes from beneath our feet. And they even said they came from a place which was always twilight. So everyone is curious, obviously, how this journey to the center will go down. Blood over intent is how we're gathering for this journey. We're intending to usher in heaven on earth. Watch more of my videos, do a YouTube search of blood over intent, and catch up. Place your blood beside ours, and there's a lot of us. You'll quickly see your life will begin unraveling in ways that you couldn't even imagine. The blinders to this matrix will be permanently off, and over time this blood magic will only get more powerful. This isn't a satanic ritual, and for those who think this is somehow evil, you're totally entitled to think that. For those who see through that accusation, go ahead and place your blood over intent when you're ready. Thank you for watching. Stay whole and centered. I love you all.